Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm J. Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leah Morgan.
It's Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never.
Never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. My name is Lucas Pinkert. I'm an actual Reverend, and here with me always is the man, the mirth, the legend. It's the big man, Dan Flip Gibson.
I suppose mirth is better than the girth.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it's true because you are
it's Christmassy time still, mirth,
and you bring the jokes.
Merry.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
Mirth is humor and fun. That's kind of your gig on the show.
I gotta do something.
Well, it's about time.
On today's episode,
we have the very fabulous and very funny, very interesting Ryan Winders. Now, we used to do a bunch of stuff where we interviewed our friends early on. We interviewed Winders. That episode didn't make it. We talk about that a little bit in here. We talk some WWE, WWF. We talk about his collection of all of the original Nintentdo Entertainment System games. Danley gets bored, and
I was going to say, what you wrap?
No, go ahead.
Well, leave us a note down in the comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you think that I'm a
Leave
jerk.
a note.
If I'm a jerk in this episode, let us know, because I have been told after this episode that I may have been a little bit jerky.
It was entertaining. Well, I'm sure it's going to make for.
I would love to know from you. Let me know. Do I need to tone it down? Do I need to crank the jerk knob up to 11? I don't know.
Make sure that you like and subscribe. Check us out. Give us a review if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Podchaser. And
thank you, Ryan Winders, for putting up with me.
for putting up with us. And without any further ado, Ryan Windows. Yeah. All right, hey, Big Dan, Big Flip. We've got on our sweet, clean airwaves today.
I've been earning my Flip name lately.
Oh, nice. On our sweet, clean airwaves today is the man who is the mastermind behind Winders' Laws of Inverse Proportions, a 21st Century Guide to Dating. He is the swim coach at Union College, as well as a WWE historian. It is the fabulous, the talented, the lovely, the man who owns every NES game, Dr. Ryan Winders. What's going on, Doc?
Hey, how's it going, Lucas?
It's what's up, Doc.
No, it's not. I'm not ready to be sued by the estate of Frank Oz.
You can say that.
You can't.
Frank Oz didn't do that. It was Mel Blanc. Go ahead. I've just derailed this whole thing. Let's restart.
We're not restarting this show. Not a whole lot, man. So we had you on a super early episode of the show.
And I remember I had like internet issues too that day.
Yeah, so you were having internet issues. We were having internet issues. This is almost 3 years ago
now. It's
before
Elon Musk fixed the internet.
It is before Elon Musk fixed the internet. And it's also like in that weird time frame where we thought the best content we could put out is if we just interviewed our friends.
We apparently still think that.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. Going back on the Rev and Rep rewind, I'm thinking Ryan is one we should give a second chance to.
That well was not properly tapped.
So anyway, Ryan was one of the first people who was on our show, but that episode is lost to history as between errors on Zoom and the iMac that we were using at the time. And our original producer running back and forth to the bathroom because of the burritos and hot sauce that he had eaten.
It was an orange iMac. That's how old it was.
It was terrible.
It was bad.
Yeah. So this is our makeup episode 2.5 years later because Ryan's schedule is so jam-packed.
Jam-packed.
Yes.
So the first thing I want to talk to you about, because anytime I mention the name Winders, my dad immediately gets excited. Now, Ryan stayed with my parents a couple of times whenever he's hung out in town, and my dad tells this story of what he calls Nerd Quest. And what Nerd Quest was a Saturday afternoon where Dad and Ryan went around to like local GameStops and used bookstores and things like that in order to try and complete the now complete collection of the original NES games. So first, why do you have this fascination with NES games? Because this is like the original Nintendo Entertainment System, right?
Right.
And what's the journey been like to collect all of them?
Tell us about your journey.
It's actually been pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, like one of the things I remember, I mean, with this being, the holiday season and Christmas, one of the presents I asked for every year was Nintendo related items. Like I remember getting the Nintendo when it first came out. And then the years after would always be like, can I get some Nintendo games for Christmas? However many I can get. And then, when Super Nintendo came out, that Nintendo 64, but my heart really always belonged to the NES because that was the first system,
right?
My first gaming system. And I just remember the games and like little things, right? Like my mom, when she would try to play, like she was trying to invent the Wii before the Wii came out, right? Like she would take the controller, try to like jump Mario over with her hands.
That is a great point.
Yeah.
The Nintendo technology has finally caught up to what the girls were doing when they're playing and they're driving Mario Kart. And they go,
Yep.
They said, we should add a gyroscope to that. Look at those moves.
Look at that.
Doing.
Now moms can play with their kids.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So probably I would say like 5 years ago. Yeah. My mom, she called and she was like, hey,
your burrito is ready.
That was actually a stopwatch. It just has an alarm on it. That's where my house is right now, man. Lots of stopwatches. But she was like, hey, here are all your old games and here's your old Nintendos. I'm either going to sell them in a yard sale, get rid of them, or you can do something with them. She goes, but I know you like them, so here you go.
That's amazing.
And so like, in this box was my original NES, my original SNES, my original 64.
Okay.
All the games I had with them. The Power Glove.
Yeah.
I had the Power Glove in there. And then just like random controllers and stuff. But when I set it out, like in my guest bedroom at my house, I was like, man, I think it would be cool to collect the whole NES system, right? And there was a little documentary that had come out. It was out of Canada at the time, and it was called Nintendo Quest. And these guys like basically drove around Canada, the United States, going to their friends' houses, and they tried to collect every NES game in 30 days. And I was like,
dang,
I wonder if I could do that, but not in 30 days. Could I just go around
and not with friends, just Scott Pinkered?
Yeah, right. And then Scott becomes part of
just
that.
the Reverend Father.
Yes. So so basically I just decided that I would go, and
that would be
anytime
great.
I would travel, because I travel a lot, and anytime I would go, I would just try to find these local mom and pop shops and meet people in different towns and different cities, go to different states, do whatever. And so I just started doing that. Like anytime I traveled anywhere, I would try to find it. I would save up money, try to find these games in person, not just go on eBay, purchase a game, those type of things.
Right.
And so anytime I would do that, I would do it. And the story Lucas was talking about, like I was in Dallas, and I was there for, I can't remember what I was even in for.
Just to hang out.
We were around, and
that's how I flatter myself. Ryan just came to hang out because I'm so much fun. I was such a cool dude back then when I was single.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had a yellow car and everything.
That's true. Yeah.
So
you're looking for affirmation from me.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna get no affirmation from you at all.
I feel a lingering request for affirmation.
Nope.
Just sits there. But we went around, and Scott was like, at the time, he was like, yeah, like, I know some local game stops and game spots, that we can visit. So we went to this
Scooter
one that
knows
was
where
right
to
next
go.
to his house, and we asked the guy, and we're like, hey man, like, what's going on?
It
like,
sounds
do you
like a
have any
drug
NES
transaction.
games? And they're like, no, like we don't. And then one guy was like, wait, I think we have a couple like in a drawer. And he goes like under a drawer, under his desk, and like pulls out this box. And he goes, I think there are some games in here. And there was two. And one was like Mario 3, a super common game.
Right.
And the second one was Zombie Nation, which at the time was valued at like $500.
What's it? Okay, so what's it valued at now?
You're like, I'll give you 80 cents for that.
Is there
Let me look.
is
Hold
there
on.
like a, because I'm assuming that this isn't going to be, we had a guy on that was talking recently about baseball cards, Danley's favorite subject, and
Sure.
that essentially that there's some of these cards that we valued really highly back in the day, and now we've come to find out there's like millions of copies of them. I'm assuming with NES games we don't
I
quite.
was like, oh, this King Griffey Jr. card, I'm for sure gonna retire on.
Yeah,
And I
so
find out it's $18.
but
Yeah.
I think with Nintendo games, just because people that would collect that are a little bit more, let's say,
It's all the market rates, right? It's what
technologically
people are
savvy
gonna pay.
than people that just find baseball cards at the impulse items area at Walmart. We probably have a better understanding of how many of those games are actually out there. So, except for maybe ET for Atari. But what if? What do you got? So, Zombie Nation.
I have an important
What's it
question.
going for now?
525 is
Okay.
what it's going for now. So it's held pretty
Right.
well. Usually games like that skyrocket, but that one's held pretty good. But the guy didn't know. He was like, it's just in a box, like maybe $100. Would you do like
Oh my-
125? And I just was like, yep, let's go. And your dad, like he backed off
Right.
and then just let me handle the transaction. And we
Yeah.
got to the car and he just goes, what just happened? And I was like, okay, so this game is
Dude.
worth this much, and
Right.
now
Scott.
it's worth this much. And he's just like, okay. And then like the rest of the day, we kind of went around to like local shops and we found deals. I mean, nothing like that,
Right.
but I mean, we just found different things. And so yeah,
Scott is so clutch.
Mm-hmm.
I just, anytime I would travel, I would go and find them. And eventually I got to the point where I collected all of them. And
So,
the
how
last
many
one-
is all of them?
Yeah.
it's like 700.
Okay, so there's I'm looking here at the Nintendo Quest documentary, and they said
Yes.
in Canada there was 678 licensed Nintendo Entertainment System games. Was there like, so it says licensed game? Was there like a black market for Nintendo games where there were unlicensed games that came out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about
and so-
Black Man
and so
2.
this
Yeah.
is actually
yeah, that's what I want to know about is Black Man 2. That's really what I'm getting at.
no, I don't know that game.
Okay,
But, like,
cool.
It's
so,
not-
like,
I don't
games that
think
would
it's-
be what would be called unlicensed games would
Right.
be
This
games
This is
like
definitely
the church
unlicensed.
community might know about.
It's not
more,
the
like,
church
community.
Bible adventures.
It's not
right?
a Bible adventure.
Didn't you have some of those
Oh
games?
yeah. That's what I want to ask about. Yeah, we had growing up. So my mom was like, "Oh, just like with everything, music, it has to be Christian." And then with video games, well, it has to be Christian. I was like, "What games?" She goes, "Here, guy, I found Elijah," and there's like a bunch of them, and they were actually pretty fun. Kind of puzzle games.
Right.
It was actually not bad. My brother and I would sit there and play it. Not terrible, I gotta say. But you're saying these are unlicensed. These are
Yeah,
who
yeah,
made
so
these
they're
games?
unlicensed, so it's like third-party games that Nintendo.
This like
didn't
manna
give the
from
rights
heaven?
to.
Yes.
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 Yeah. So like
And the
there
Lord
are
sent
a
this
bunch
down
of those that did
NES
it.
games
There's,
for
like,
the
one
young
called
nerds.
Cheetah Man, and then there's they made these like compilation games where like a bunch of like kind of how nowadays people can make apps on the App Store for like Apple and iPhones and Samsung, those type of things.
Mhm.
They would do that with Nintendo, and then they would just release them and sell them on their own through Walmart.
That's what
or
happened to
Toys R
Black
Us
Man
or
2.
whatever.
Yeah.
But they're just unlicensed. They don't have the seal of approval on them. But those games do exist. Like I said, the most
So how
popular
many-
one's probably Bible Adventures because it came in a couple different colored carts, and it seems like a lot of my church friends growing up had that game.
Yeah, I had a couple of them. Like there's
So, how many of those games do you have?
My
Because
mom
those
was
are the
mad.
ones that you have zero unlicensed games. So you
No, I
don't
didn't.
have Cheetah Man.
No.
Okay,
no.
so what even is Cheetah Man?
It's like this weird game, and it was created by these developers, and it's like three guys that are all like cheetah men, and it's like a scrolling platformer where you can kind of go and
probably
go
jump.
after the bad guy. And it just kind of became like a cult kind of like, this is a cool game, but really it's a cool game because it's so bad of a game.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
the
It's
Green
one.
Room.
It's called Cheetah Man, the Cheetah Man, and there's one Cheetah Man and two Cheetah Ladies.
Ooh,
Yeah.
like those odds.
It's weird. And then there was like a Cheetah Man 2 that came on a cart called Action 52, and it was like undeveloped,
Camden.
and
Right.
it like broke down like halfway through playing the game. It's really weird.
So, since the I do want to see if you can. I want to see your wall of games if that's a possibility, or just give us a picture of it and we'll post
they're in
it.
storage.
I can definitely do a picture. I can definitely send you a picture of it.
Okay, so this
But
used to
I
be
have
like
it.
one of the features for Ryan's Airbnb.
Yeah.
Whenever he had his house
like he
on
can play any game from
Airbnb,
30
there was
years
like
ago.
this wall of Nintendo games that were all there.
You could see a bunch of games that Danley couldn't play because it wasn't
Because
Christian.
it wasn't Christian enough. Yeah. But it was incredible as soon as he started talking to me about this and like the acquisition of games and how especially the community that is looking for the original Nintendo games is, because I think one of the things that's kind of driving this now is like Nintendo's released the new, like the tiny NES
look.
that has like 50 games on it, right? So you can relive some of that. That is where we find the bootleg that is Black Man 2. And if you don't know what we're talking about, it's a previous episode.
Go on YouTube.
Yeah,
Be careful
Go
with
check it out.
searching
They
Black
took
Man
the
2.
American version, right? They took
Black
the
Man 2
American
NES
version
video game.
So they took the American version of Super
Mario
Mario
2.
Brothers 2, right, where you would like pick up the turnips and all of that stuff. And all of the characters are like, as soon as your cursor goes over them, they become black. And instead of like the birds and stuff that you would normally fight as the bad guys, you literally go fight KKK members. And when you like select your character, it says on the screen, "Please kill Whitey." And then that's it. And then you go. But so it's on like these emulators. But I think those are
Ryan, don't leave yet.
yeah, I think those are kind of what's driving.
Don't leave yet. Just wait.
The like the Nintendo collector's market, because since you've started, it's only grown. You said you've been doing it for about 5 years. For those of us who just enjoy video games and kind of like from a nostalgia perspective, I appreciate this stuff. What's the most expensive game that's out there right now?
And then I have a better question once you're done with that.
Okay. Well, I'm looking it up just to see which price value is the highest of the one that I have. But it's interesting that you talk about Black Man 2 because as a ROM hack,
We thought it was interesting.
Mario 2, well, it's interesting because Mario 2 is actually not really Super Mario 2.
Right.
It's a game that was originally called Doki Doki Panic, which all of the characters in Mario were like a little different. So they adapted, they took that game, like the Japanese version of that game, and they basically substituted the Mario characters in, like Mario, Luigi, Toad, Princess.
That makes way more
for
sense.
the characters in Doki Doki Panic. That's why that game is so off.
That's what's so weird.
Yeah.
It's odd.
What was the explanation for that though? Is it because, and this is what I'd always heard, and so maybe you can confirm this, being that you're a little bit more plugged into this community, is that they changed it because they didn't think that the American audiences were good enough at video games to play Mario 2 actually.
Yes. So when what we would know as Mario the Lost Levels when that came out,
right?
That was the original Super Mario Brothers.
So like winning World War II, that wasn't good enough for them. They were like, they might be able to win the Pacific, but I don't think they could push A and B quick enough.
Well,
wow.
Well, what it was when that game came out in Japan, the Japanese players of that game at the time were like, this is a level up. Like, this game is much harder.
Right.
Because they had like wind physics in the game and just different things. The jumps were harder. You had to be like just a more skilled player. And so when Nintendo of America saw it, they kind of felt like that game wouldn't translate well to our market and it wouldn't play well or sell well here. And then that would kill the Mario franchise. So that's when they went and saw Doki Doki Panic.
Let's give them just a dumb game and put Mario in it.
I mean, it gave us two pretty iconic characters. It gave us Birdo and it gave us Shy Guys, which are now like all across all of the Mario platforms, even in Japan.
Yep.
Shy Guy's one of the best characters on Super Mario Strikers.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway, so like that's where that game came from.
Wow.
And why they did it that way, which is weird, but they did that. But then to answer your other question too, my most valuable game right now, according to my app, is Little Samson, which as well, like you hear Bible Adventures being a non-licensed game. Little Samson is a legitimate licensed game. It's actually a very, very good game for the NES, and it came out right at the end of the life cycle. Like the SNES was already out when this game came out.
Okay.
It's currently valued at $2,312.
Wow.
Dang.
So
what's the most expensive game that's out there?
Oh, that would be
Dance Dance Revolution 2.9.
No, I think it's like Stadium Events or something like that.
Stadium Events is going to be the one that's
Tank
like
Wars.
the most expensive. Let me find.
And that's
out
the
how
one that
much
like came with a mat where you had to like.
Dance Dance Revolution?
Well,
Yes.
it was the precursor to the DDR mat because it had the same arrows and everything. And so whenever you were like running track,
Oh, yeah, I just
you
pulled
had
that out of
to
nowhere.
you had to. No, we know where you pulled it out of. We you had to jump on like the forward and backward arrow or the left and right in order to make the guy run. And it was
So,
look
so a lot
horrible,
of people
right?
had that game or own the game. The mat you're talking about is called the Power Pad,
Right.
where you would sit on it, you'd like run on it, you do the thing, or if you were
Change
like a
your
little
kid on
like
it.
me, kneel behind it and hit it with your hands.
That's
right?
yes, that's
That
exactly
was what
right.
happened.
Yep.
Hacks.
Same thing with the NES. You had the gun,
that
you put it right
game,
on the screen.
Stadium Events was the precursor to a game called World Class Track Meet, which a lot of people had World Class Track Meet. They even sold it with the NES for a while.
Uh-huh.
But Stadium Events was the first version of that. It was
Right.
it was created by a company called Bandai, which people
Yep.
probably know in the
Mhm.
gaming community.
Konami.
So Bandai came out with Stadium Events, and they came out with their Family Fun Fitness Pad.
Family
But
Fun.
then Nintendo saw it, and Nintendo was like, "Hey, we really like this. We're actually going to buy the whole property from you." So they did, and then they took the games off the shelves, rebranded it,
Oh, weird.
and then rebranded it as World Class Track Meet. So everyone that has a Nintendo probably, or that even tries to collect, has the Power Pad, has the game, but the exact version Stadium Events is really rare. It's super hard to find because it wasn't out for a while. There were rumors that it only came out on the East Coast and was only sold in like Cresses and Kmart's. Like there's all these type of things, but no one really remembers or has exact information of, hey, here was this game, it was out for this long, whatever. You can go back to old Nintendo Powers and old promos
Oh, I will.
that Nintendo put out, and it's out. Like you can see the game.
Yeah.
Like they promoted it, but like they just didn't print a lot of copies of it. And currently a loose copy of that game, again, according to the app that I use, is worth $20,218.
Good grief.
Holy smokes.
So that's the game.
That's the kind of thing your mom would have thrown away.
That's what I want to get at. That's what I want to talk about. So, Ryan, in the story of you collecting all of these games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I see a sad, long line of young boys that have lost their games due to their
Yeah,
moms.
because their moms. Yeah.
So, what I want to know is, and I want a specific answer here.
Yep.
For moms that weren't like your mom, that called you ahead of time and said, hey, I've got
Right.
this box here. I'm thinking of selling it. You said, hey, please don't sell it. I'd like to keep it. For the moms that didn't do that, at what age is a healthy mom allowed to be sent to a home?
Oh, man. I'm gonna plead the fifth. As
Yeah.
the only son to a single parent mom. I'm
Yes.
not gonna say anything.
And Betty is a gem. Betty's wonderful.
Lovely
What
woman.
if you have a mom with two sons and a daughter?
Then
Probably makes it worse.
I think what you do is you give the decision to the daughter because she's
Yeah.
going to be the most shrewd. Yeah.
Well, but see, it's so funny because like my mom, she did ask me, and I know that there are a lot of parents that like hold on to things or they just give them away when their kids get older.
Right.
But like I hear stories all the time.
I know
of,
what
like,
my sister's
my
husband
friends
wants to do.
trading in their NESs to get Nintendo 64 games.
Right.
Because they were like, oh, it's out. Like, they hadn't waited long enough for that retro market to kind of loop
Pick
back
up.
in or for the nostalgia to kick in.
Yeah.
And so GameStop for a while, like, made a killing on those. And I remember, like, even as a little kid, like picking up things at pawn shops. Like, I think I picked up Mike Tyson's Punch Out at a pawn shop for $3 when I
Great
was
game.
little,
Yeah.
and I really wanted that game. But yeah, it's
Well, I'm proud of your mom. I'm glad that she loved you enough to keep to keep your
Yeah.
childhood games and allow you to create lasting memories. That's, I think it's very important and a thing a loving mother would do.
Yeah, we lost ours in a house fire, so my mom didn't actually get the opportunity to throw
I'm
away
not
all of
talking
our
about your
Nintendo
mom.
games.
I'm not talking about the Reverend mother.
I just want to make sure that everyone knows this is the reason that your mother was incarcerated.
quit
is
virtue
because
signaling.
is because she stole your
Quit
Nintendo
virtue
games and
signaling
threw it
about your
away.
mom.
This
did
was
she do that? Did your mom do that to you?
So she literally brought up evidence that I would recycle old games, and one of which happened to be my sister's game. She played my awesome games all the time, and she
Right.
had a spare game she never played, so I traded in to get another one that
Sure.
she played. And so she said, "Well, you sold Julia's game, so I just sold your system." You know, what? This is years later,
Right.
Years and years later.
Yeah.
She used that as evidence
And that
to
was
back up her decision to sell it in a garage sale. And I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
And that was the very first time the cops got called on your mom, and that's what
Yeah.
led
Yeah.
to her now life of crime.
Yeah.
Was that first
She
minor theft of a Christmas gift.
Always ask to
Downward
speak to a
spiral
lawyer.
has begun.
So you've got something like 700 games.
Yeah.
Right.
I can't do this anymore.
That's okay. Later, Pumpkin. You've got all these games that you've collected over the last 5 years. One of the things that you and I have gotten to talk about is the niche community for these games. And I don't know. The last time we were talking, you said that you were meeting with a guy who's got a YouTube channel that's all they
Yeah.
do is they feature Nintendo games. Like, what's
Yeah,
that just kind
yeah,
of blows my mind.
So the community's kind of interesting recently, right? Like, especially with YouTube and people doing kind of what I've done. And I think Nintendo Quest, that documentary was on the front end of that, where they really went after trying to find the games and bring that community together and know that there are other people out there and know that there are game shops out there. Now, like, there are a couple YouTube channels that I'd started watching during that collector phase. One was a channel called Pixel Game Squad. It's just a bunch of guys out in California, and they go to swap meets and different game shops out there and yard sales, and they find games. And then there's a couple others that I found recently. One is called Phoenix Resale, and oddly, he's out of Lexington, which is where I live, but we've never met. And
Okay.
he films videos all the time, like literally across the street from my house. And
Crazy.
No
so
way.
I'm like, I don't know how I've never met you, but his whole thing is that he's a game reseller. He got into it over COVID. And basically just would start flipping games. Like, hey, I can find this game for $10 at this random store, but on Amazon someone really wants it and they'll pay $25. So now I can make a profit. And he does it like on a big scale, and we'll go to meets. And then there's another guy that I really started watching. His name is Retro Rick, and he's out of Arkansas. And he recently just bought like a full-on huge, like massive game store in Conway, Arkansas. And so he's doing his thing, doing reselling, making videos about the community. But now, because he owns the game store, everything's kind of flowing through that instead of him like on the hunt trying to find these games in person. But yeah, it's a pretty cool little space that's going on.
So you said you guys, your neighbor that makes videos, that you said, hey, we never really met. Have you guys since collaborated on anything, or you still?
No, not at all. I mean, because like I'm not really in the space of like making videos or doing a lot. Like, I would love to help him if he needed something, and just talk to him, show him the collection, see what he's got to do. But no, we've just never really crossed paths with the things that we've done. Now, him and Rick are friends, and I'm planning a trip to go down to Rick's store to look at a game that he has that's like a variant of a game that I don't have. And so we're working on that, but maybe through that I'll end up meeting him. But yeah.
Okay, so like what you're talking about, making a trip to Arkansas for a variant of a game that you
Yes.
don't have, and that this is going to be like a planned thing. This
Yeah.
isn't so. This is so foreign to me. The idea, all right, you have this game. it's in this color cartridge or has this weird font or whatever. Now we have to set up. This sounds more like a drug transaction than it does somebody that's just going to check something out, right?
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, thanks, Dave Chappelle. So, so like, what? How long is this process to just go look at a game that you may want to potentially buy?
Well, I mean, it's at the point where I'm at,
You
right,
sample it with your
the
finger?
collection.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's real.
I collect.
Stuff.
I
Uncut.
collect. Let me see. I collect the licensed NES games, and I collect all the variants of those licensed games.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with the spot that I'm at now, other than the $20,000 stadium events, that's
Right.
probably never going to make it into my house. I'm down to like 6 or 7 variants that I don't have, and it is weird things like, hey, this label was printed this way, this cartridge is like this. It's little stuff. But yeah, like the process gets really difficult because unless you just happen to go into a random store and that random variant is sitting there, then you don't find them that often because the print run is very, very low. So that process is kind of long. Like you find that someone has a game, and then you have to contact them and do some things to make sure it happens, and then after that it's just creating a schedule to try to make the travel happen. And with my schedule between teaching, coaching swim, all the other things that I do, I've got to find the right weekend to travel.
Math.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, like I've never
Get into
really
that in a
been to
second.
Arkansas to do anything. I've been
Right.
through Arkansas, but I've never been to Arkansas. So as a side, that crosses another state.
So
off
do you
the
have
list.
any like eligible cousins in Arkansas that might be single and ready to mingle?
I have no family in Arkansas.
Oh, well, that's
actually.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
You're in the clear then.
Yeah,
They won't be coming after you with their toothbrush. You know, the old
Nope.
joke, Danley, is that the toothbrush was invented in Arkansas, and if it was anywhere else, it would have been called the teeth brush.
brush.
So, all right. So, last question on the NES stuff, man.
Sure.
Do you actually play any of the games, or do you just like have the collection?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why, like, I collect only loose. So like, there are people out there that will collect every game.
Right.
And then they'll collect every game in box. Like if you watch the NES Quest, there's a guy at the end, like towards the end of the documentary, and he has this like full on basement where he has every game loose. He has doubles of certain games, triples of certain games, and then he has every game in a box with the manual, with the inserts, like everything. And people really want that complete in box feel, because you got to think, like when we were kids, like what's the first thing we did, right? We opened the box, ripped it up, threw it away.
Oh yeah, for
threw the
sure.
manual away. You never had them, but now like having the box with a game and a manual with the game just makes it more valuable. Like take that same stadium events that we were just talking about.
The $22,000 game.
Yeah, the $20,000 game. If we had that complete, that game would go from $20,000 to almost $56,000.
Good Lord.
So some people
Another thing
really
my mom
want that.
did.
For
And then some people go the next step
for
of
just
like
a
grading
cartridge?
the games,
Oh,
like
man.
sending them off and getting them graded, which
Right.
that's like a whole nother piece.
Yeah.
But for me, I wanted loose games. 1, because I knew they were the cheapest to get.
Sure.
2, I knew they were more obtainable. But 3, because if I do get nostalgic and I want to play a game, I can just pop it into the NES and let it go.
Right.
And like relive my childhood or play a game that I never had when I was a kid.
And
right?
they're already
Like,
full of other people's spit from blowing in them.
So they do DNA tests on how many people blew into it.
No joke.
I did clean them all with some
Camden.
with some isopropyl alcohol and some brass.
Camden, do you
Nice.
have any concept of what an NES is?
Okay, thank you.
What game have you played on NES? I guess the old ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
Good.
Yeah.
But not Contra.
Good job.
Not Contra,
yeah.
probably not Double Dragon,
Oh, those were so good.
Mega Man.
I
Uh-huh. I remember Megan Man.
appreciate Contra, but screw Contra.
Why? Because you couldn't beat it on the retro Sega?
Because it's impossible.
It wasn't. We were just better at video games back then.
No, it's impossible.
Did
Just-
you use the Konami code? Up, down, down?
No, we tried it.
I got it to work. Daily just wasn't fast enough.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So, shifting gears. So we've talked about the Nintendo stuff.
We've talked Nintendo. Let's get a little more interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
well,
numbers.
we've got a bunch of broad topics to talk to you about. You mentioned that you would help this guy with his YouTube channel or whatever if he asked for it. You actually had a really successful TikTok channel that you had going about math.
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
first
Randomly.
off, huh?
Yeah.
And then I'll let
do
you start
remember-
there,
do
and then we'll
remember me
follow
as
up.
Financial director, Ryan, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, you were a mathemagician,
Yes, I was a math magician.
which is the most demonic of all the magical arts, is the mathemagician.
Yeah, it's if it was a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Right?
What?
So yeah, over COVID and a little before COVID, I tried this like side hustle where I wanted to start a tutoring company, right? Because I had the skill, I was able to to help people out. I was finishing my doctorate at the time, and I was like, look, like I can meet people at the local library or a Starbucks and tutor them in algebra or pre-cal or whatever it might be. And so we started there, and I created a website that did it. And then over COVID, I knew everything was going to move online, right? So we just moved the tutoring company online, and I was brainstorming with some of my friends, and I was like, okay, so like, what could we do social media wise? I understand social media, but I don't have the time to keep up with it and post things every day. How can we do it? What was the strategy? And one of the strategies we came up with was to post like a puzzling math question, right? Like not anything that was crazy difficult, like a calculus 3 problem or something, but just like a general level question that could be taken one way or could be taken another way, or maybe there's a twist in it that most people don't know.
This isn't like Matt Damon as the janitor solving the impossible math equation. This is just something that's difficult.
This is a
Normal
regular
stuff,
like, is it in parentheses?
order of operations was like the first one that we did,
Right.
And we started just making these like random weekly posts, like, hey, here's math question of the week, what do you think? And the first time we did, like, I think it got like 1,000 views, which for TikTok is not crazy, but for our world it was more than what we would expect.
Sure.
And then, we posted the answer at the end of the week. We posted a new one the next week. And then all of a sudden, like, it would start to getting like 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 views.
Wow.
Because of the algorithm that TikTok had at the time.
Because China
right?
owns TikTok.
Yeah.
Well, he started wearing a bikini. That's what really, that's what really did it.
That's what really got it, right? and so we posted it, and then the thing that was wild for me was how people would argue with each other. Like someone would just post an answer, and then someone would post an alternative answer and be like,
With
"You're
insults,
an idiot.
yeah.
It's this, blah 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 blah."
Gotta have
And
the
then like
insults in
people
there.
would get on there explaining to other people how to do it, and that's where those math things really kind of took off. And we let it run for a while and did it until we kind of hit a point with it where it was just like, well, it's not growing anymore. It's you can ask questions and everybody gets the same answer, or if you post an answer too early, it kind of kills things. But it was kind of fun for a little bit there.
So, do you have any math questions you'd like to give to Danley and I so that we could post them on our TikTok? Because we've tried the bikini thing and it hasn't worked for us.
TikTok hasn't hit for you guys.
No.
Oh, it has.
No.
Have you tried the bikini strategy?
Have you tried Terrence Howard's math?
Oh, that's a great one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, you should do some little research on this. But Terrence Howard
is the original
famous star of Empire / Iron Man.
He was an Iron Man. Yep.
He developed his own math.
Yeah, he did
using some symbols. I'll give you one quote and you tell me what you think, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If 1 times 1 equals 1, that means that 2 is of no value because 1 times itself has no effect. 1 times 1 equals 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. So what's the square root of 2?
0? What? What?
Yeah, he gives a whole speech on it.
He does.
It's interesting, at least.
Yep.
Now, I know this could segue into like another topic.
Oh, for sure.
But
that's what I'm trying to do.
Have you ever heard of Scott Steiner math?
No.
Scott Steiner from the WWE?
Yeah.
Okay,
Ooh.
big
He
big
cut-
Papa Pump from
Big
the
Papa
NWO
Pump.
days. Yeah.
He cut a whole promo on a guy talking about math, where he was like, you only have a 60% chance of beating me, and if you have a 66% chance, then I have a 30% chance, and then I have a 1/3 chance of this, and like he starts twisting numbers with fractions, and it's just like the wildest thing that you've ever heard in your life.
So
Like,
Scott
it's
Steiner has a pure math.
Have you heard Scott Stapp?
Yes.
Yeah, he
I know
doesn't.
Scott
He doesn't
Stapp.
have any math, but he does have a lot of marbles in his mouth whenever he sings.
He does.
Him and Eddie Vedder both.
What you talk about Eddie Vedder?
That was there's a meme going around right now about Ticketmaster, and it says Eddie Vedder tried to warn us about Ticketmaster, and then it's someone trying to interpret the first few lines of Even Flow. Yeah, it's just gibberish. Okay, so you in the same weekend where NerdQuest started, Whip, there was this amazing sort of sports experience that Ryan facilitated for my family.
A sports experience.
A sports experience, right? So one of the big things that my dad and I have done over the years is we've tried to go
Sports
to
extravaganza.
yeah, to do some sports extravaganza stuff. We got to go to Dirk Nowitzki's last game at the American Airlines Center, which was really cool. We went to the last game at Texas Stadium before that was torn down and the Cowboys started playing at the new Cowboy Stadium. We got beat by the Ravens pretty handily because Tony Romo was terrible that night.
Jessica Simpson, man.
No, this was post Jessica Simpson. And then we had the opportunity to go to Yu Darvish's first game, which was really fun. Well, I come over to my parents' house to hang out with Ryan, and what is up on our screens but WrestleMania?
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Because Ryan is as we said in the open, he is a WWE historian of sorts, and we got to watch The Undertaker's last match before his first retirement, which has kind of popped in and out. All right, so many of us kind of quote unquote grew out of wrestling. This has not been the case for you post Attitude Era. We've talked, Danley and I have talked extensively about our WCW NWO infatuations with the
so
N64 games.
So good.
Yeah.
We both power bombed our sisters.
Yeah, we did. That's one of the things as an only child you didn't have the opportunity to do, which was to try out wrestling moves on your younger siblings.
I did have a friend with a trampoline and wrestling buddies.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
we were able to do some moves out there.
Right on. So, talk to us. What's the haps with all the wrestling?
What's your favorite move?
Yeah, first off, let's start with that. What's your favorite move? That's less vague. Let's be more specific. What's your favorite move?
So I like two. I'll give you two. I like the Fujiwara armbar. Just because of the name. But
yes,
the
I like that
Fujiwara
sushi
armbar.
roll.
Yeah, and then I like the sharpshooter. I was a big Bret Hart fan, so sharpshooter is going to be it for me. Absolutely, not the Scorpion Deathlock. It's different, but similar.
Okay, so I end up, because I'm working the overnight shift with the baby. I've got to find stuff to watch. We'd run through all the Lord of the Rings movies. We'd run through all the Star Wars movies. And on our TikTok, for some reason, as I'm scrolling through the Rev and Rep TikTok, this documentary about the Monday Night Wars comes up. And I text Ryan and I'm like, hey, the 4 minutes of this that I've watched on TikTok seems interesting to me. Where can I watch it? He tells me go to Peacock, check it out. So I end up watching this thing over the next 20 nights.
Ryan Googled it real quick and just gave me the answer.
Yeah, just gave me the answer. Right, because I'm trying to juggle a baby that is interested in eating and pooping and pulling on my beard. Like that's the three
and
three hobbies.
Yelling at you.
Yeah. Oh, dude. So you get me turned on to this. I did not realize how in depth that was, but you mentioned the Harts and especially Bret Hart. I want to know about the Montreal Screw Job, because this was something that I found out about in this documentary. I knew nothing about it beforehand, and I've now become fascinated with it. So
me intrigued.
Yeah, talk to us about the Montreal Screw Job.
So the first thing I would say is you need to check out a different documentary called Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows.
What if you hate documentaries?
Is this another on the Peacock thing?
Ooh, I don't know where you could find that one.
Is this on the Peacock?
Is this on the Peacock? Also, look at the Mike Reiner documentary on Vimeo for $5.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, Ryan.
So So basically, the short of it is, in '97, Bret Hart was ending his contract with WWE, right?
Right.
He had signed this long-term deal to be like the guy for WWE. And then I believe like he got like a crazy high dollar like amount for so many years. And then as his contract winded down, he would go into part-time and then maybe become like a behind the scenes producer, someone working inside of WWE.
Like Triple H.
Well, yeah, like what Triple H would be doing
Yeah.
ish, right? But essentially what happened at that time, the Monday Night Wars was going on and WCW was killing WWE, right? So financially WWE was not in a good spot. Vince goes to Bret Hart and says, hey, we can't afford this contract that we've signed. We're gonna have to terminate it. And then
Dang.
they tried to work out a deal, they couldn't. They both knew that WCW was after Bret Hart. Vince was like, hey, go get your money from WCW, sign the contract, right?
Okay.
Now, at
That
the
seems like a pretty
time, in
stand-up thing to
storyline
do.
for WWE, Brett was doing this really unique thing where he was a bad guy in the United States, but he was the ultimate hero in Canada,
Okay.
right? And the whole roster, like if you were fighting Bret Hart, you would be doing the same thing just in reverse. So like
Okay.
for example, Stone Cold Steve Austin, like anti-hero,
Right.
America loved him, he was awesome, like everything was great. He goes to Canada and just gets crapped on. Like they hate him, they're throwing stuff at him.
Whoa.
He's the worst thing in America. Like, and it's this cool like duality where like the good guys and bad guys are completely different based on what country you live,
Yeah.
right? And at the time they were doing a lot of like, hey, we'll pop up to Canada for a few weeks and then come back down to the US, do a tour, go up to Canada, do a tour. And for them it's a good money making strategy. You're getting into a different market, but you're capitalizing on your big names.
Right.
So Bret Hart was champion, and even behind the scenes he had this feud with Shawn Michaels. Like at the time, like they did not like each other, like personally.
Because they were friends at one point, right?
They were friends at one point, like early on, but then like by mid '90s, like things were changing, right? Brett still kind of probably wanted things to be more structured and like they were in the early '90s, where Shawn was kind of more pushing towards the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And so then there's a struggle there. They
That's what we
didn't
have
like
going
each
on.
other. There were issues behind the scenes that spilled over into like professionally how they treated each other.
Right.
Like there was a weird interview that Shawn gave like live on TV on Monday Night Raw where he referenced Brett having sunny days, and that was apparently in reference to him hanging out with Sonny, the valet that worked in WWE at the time.
Oh, wow.
Uh, and then that caused problems with Brett's home life, because then his wife is like, are you cheating on me? And he's like, no.
Oh,
And like,
dang.
then there's all of that. There was supposed to be a spot where Shawn Michaels kicked Bret Hart while he was in a wheelchair, but then Bret took the mic and stayed on the mic too long so the kick wouldn't happen on TV. And then it's like all these things where like there was just strife between them. So like that's building, the storyline between Canada and the United States is building, and like all of that's coming to a head at Survivor Series '97. And Survivor
I
Series
knew it was
97,
1997. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew it
And
was going to be
Survivor
important.
Series '97 is Bret Hart's last night with the company, and he's the champion. And then that's problematic because if he leaves, he can't take that title over to WCW, right? Like WWE cannot let that happen. And behind the scenes, Brett's like, well, let's do this. Let me wrestle this guy. Hey, I'll lose it to these 5 people. I don't want to lose it to Shawn Michaels. Hey, I'll lose it the next night on Raw. Sign me for a 1-day contract. Hey, I'll do this. And it's just like back and forth, back and forth. And they can never come to an agreement ever. And then it gets down to like Brett wearing a wire into an interview with Vince, and Vince saying, this is how we'll do it. And then later, like, he meets with Shawn and Triple H, and then they do something different. They're like, we're just going to take the belt off of him. And what actually ends up happening is he goes out to the ring worried that he's going to get screwed out of the title, but feeling safe with the referee.
Right.
And that the referee would take care of him. And then Shawn goes to the ring knowing something's going to happen, but he doesn't know exactly what. And Vince, in the match, there was supposed to be a spot where Shawn puts Brett in the sharpshooter, and then Brett grabs his leg to reverse it. Then he puts him in the sharpshooter. Whether that's the finish of the match, who knows? But that was a spot that they were going to do. And so Vince saw that as the time, and the people that were trying to get the belt off of Brett at the time that's a spot where he's vulnerable. Like, we'll never pin him, right?
Right.
If it gets to a fight, they don't know if Shawn can knock Brett out, like legitimately knock him out.
Yeah, they don't know that Shawn can actually beat up Bret Hart if that's what it comes to.
Yeah, and
which
you
is
can't
really
throw
interesting
extra
that they
people and get them involved.
Yeah,
because then
fake wrestling got real.
Right.
Brett keeps the title, right? So like, you got to find a way to submit him, and that's the only spot where he was vulnerable to do that. And so if you go back and watch it, he gets put into the sharpshooter. As he's doing it, he's planning to like reverse it. And like, as he's reaching back around to grab Shawn's legs, the referee just like rings the bell. Vince has already ran out. Like, all this stuff is happening. Shawn stops and just like looks up and is like, what's going on? Brett turns around and looks at him. And then they're like, your new champion, Shawn Michaels. And then like Shawn acts like he's mad, but he knew what was going on.
Right.
Brett's just pissed. He like hawks this huge loogie into Vince McMahon's hair. He starts destroying like
So
cameras
many people have wanted to
and
do
like
that.
all type of technical equipment. And then he like motions WCW like with his fingers on the camera on WWE television.
He actually
Shawn walks away as champion. Brett leaves the company, and you don't see him for about another 2 years.
Doesn't he actually punch Vince McMahon in the face after this?
Yeah, after the match, Vince wanted to talk to Brett. Well, it's so weird. So like, the Undertaker was there that night. He was like, hurt, but he was there, and no one told him. So he gets mad and like goes after like Bruce Pritchard and Vince to be like, what's going on? You're messing with the company. You're doing all these things.
That's not a guy I would want to make mad.
And then Vince, Brett's really mad. He confronts Shawn in the back, blah, 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 all these things. He goes and takes a shower, and then he tells like the British Bulldog, I think Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart at the time. And they were like, hey,
I'm so mad.
Vince,
I'm going to take a
Vince
shower.
Is here. He wants to see you. He goes, if he wants to see me, I'm going to finish my shower, and then I'm going to walk out there and knock him out. And you can tell him that. And he said after he did it, he knocked him out. Like, he gave him one good punch and socked him one really good time. And there's a video of Vince like afterwards, like stumbling through the hallway, like after he's getting hit, and like all of Brett's family, because he was in Canada, right? All of his family was like lining the hallways, like, what's going on? Like, they're
all hawking loogies at him.
Yeah,
sure, right?
Dude, can you imagine like walking out, like, okay, so you get screwed out of a promotion, and then you decide that's your last day, and on the way out, you punched your boss.
And your whole family's there
to just be like,
legend.
Nope, that's
legend from now on.
That's it's become like one of the most fascinating things to me.
Yeah, and
he always gets the good cheer from now on.
I mean, there are some podcasts out there, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, Conrad Thompson. They do one where like they've talked about it and they think that they're done talking about it, and they always release like another view or another point
comes
of view.
up.
But it's
Same thing
it's
happens
crazy,
with Eric Nevins.
And I think after the fact, now everybody's cool with it. They don't want to, dredge up the past, and they want to move past it.
Who wants to?
And I think everybody understands the fact of, hey, we couldn't let you leave that building with the title. Like, you knew you had to get it.
That's our belt.
Get it off.
We just put it on you for a little bit.
And honestly, like previously, Alundra Blaze, who was the women's champion in the early 90s.
Yeah, she like threw the belt away at WCW.
Yeah, so she actually kept it. So like, because they never really cared about the women's title back then, and so
that's terrible.
He just changed? Left, and like they just quit doing women's matches. And then she kept the belt. Well, when she got hired with WCW, she was like, well, I still got the WWE title. They're like, ooh, throw it away on national television. And she did. Like, she just took it and just dumped it into a trash can on Nitro. And like, that's like a very memorable moment. Well, they were like, well, she just did that. You could do the same thing. And if you do that with our world title, like, we can't survive that. Like, it's not going to be good, especially in the middle of that war. Right there.
Yeah, which ended up being something that was hugely influential during our junior high and high school years. And I do think, and we've discussed this, we need to bring Ryan on a little bit more often to get us caught up on some pro wrestling stuff.
Yeah.
Which
and there's still more to talk about with NES.
There's more to talk about with NES.
Well, definitely in 64. That was more what I was invested in.
Right. So we got more video game stuff to talk about with Ryan. We've got more WWE, and we only scratched the surface with the fact that he is Dr. Wenders and a swim coach. But as we're wrapping up today, we end all of our episodes with a little segment that we call Controlled Rowdiness. It's a bunch of rapid fire questions, which you can answer with as short or at lengthy and answer as you would like to. There are no right answers, but there are several wrong ones. So make sure not to step on those landmines and expect nothing from us by way of reply or response. And to get us going, General Grease.
What's up?
Let's kick
Ryan,
it off.
Yes.
Ryan, aliens have come to Earth, okay? And they're going to destroy it unless you have 30 seconds. They're giving you a small window.
Oh, they've cut the time in half.
To explain as simply as you can in the way that a child can understand how the NES gun works when you point it at a screen.
Oh God.
Because I still don't understand.
Basically, it turns the screen black except for one dot where the target is, and it can sense that one dot.
How? The aliens have follow-up questions. You have more time.
Lights? Can I say lights?
Yeah.
You can, but it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Such great technology from back then, and still, I don't understand it.
It doesn't.
And it doesn't work on new TVs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Why?
Earth
exploded.
So is it
Earth is done. It's
is
toast.
it true that the second player on Duck Hunt actually controls the dog or the ducks?
You can control the ducks.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So
right.
like it doesn't like perfectly control them, but you can keep them from flying off the screen.
That is pretty awesome.
All right.
Also,
Back to you.
It's kind of like Tails. He doesn't really do a whole lot, but he can kind of help a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
This is from
the second
Sega.
controller can, like, if you were to die in regular Mario, like the very first Mario, the second controller, I think if you hold select on it, like while the game's resetting, then you go back to the first level, but it lets you choose what level you start on. So instead of starting all the way back at the beginning, you could have done that and scrolled to like 2.4 or 2.6.
No way.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm stealing your question because it's a good question.
Okay.
You should not, I know this to be true because I've heard it the whole time. You should not blow into NES games, but how come it works so good?
Because the way that the NES is made, there are contacts in the game, and then there's like a connector inside the cart, and those two have to make a solid connection. So if there's dirt in there, blowing into it will clear the dirt out, so the connection's clear.
So why did they say don't blow into it when it works so good?
Because your spit will rust the contacts.
So how were you supposed to clean it then? And don't tell me alcohol swab with a Q-tip.
So on the back of the carts it says do not use alcohol, but
good.
alcohol swabs are the best way to do it.
Oh.
Yeah.
They just didn't want kids buying alcohol.
So what did they say? Just use like a Q-tip, just a clean.
Yeah, you could just dab it and put a Q-tip on it and roll, and then you would probably need to take another one just to dry it off. But
Nobody,
no
definitely no Americans that weren't smart enough to play. I almost said Spider-Man 2, Mario 2.
Yeah.
Definitely no Americans were taking that out and cleaning it. They all wrapped it on the table and put it back in.
Well, see, and then this kind of goes into a little bit of extra history there. So, like, our Nintendo is a front loader, right?
Right.
So, reason that, how you turn them on now and you get the blinking lights and everything is just it doesn't work,
Yeah.
is because of that front loading. Because when you load it down and press it down, it takes those connections and like bends them, so
Right.
they can't connect to read. The original NES, which was called a Famicom in Japan,
It was called a
is
what?
Famicom. It's short
Okay.
for family computer.
Gotcha.
But it was a top loader like the Super Nintendo. Like if you notice, Super Nintendos don't have that same problem that the original NES did. So after a while, they came out with a NES 2 basically, and it's like a little top loader NES, and it plays games much easier than the original Nintendo does.
Right on. Well, Ryan, dude, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show. Tell our audience where it is that they can find you.
I would say for like social medias,
Yeah.
Winders 111 would be anywhere that you can find me.
Where can they check out their math,
or,
your math TikToks?
My math TikToks, they don't exist anymore. But if you try to find it doesn't add up math tutoring, that's probably still around somewhere.
Nice.
The other place I would say to find me is Union College Swim and Dive, since I'm the head coach there. If you have swimmers that are looking to swim in college, holler at me.
Right on, man. Thanks so much for being on the show, dude. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man.
No problem, man. We'll catch you later.
Ryan, Dr. Ryan Winders, as it were. So I mentioned in the intro, I said Ryan Windows. That's how, like, when he and I first met, that's how he told me to say his name. He goes, yeah,
It's like
I'm
Winders.
Ryan. He goes, it's like,
South?
he's like, it's like if you're saying Windows from the South is Winders. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, Ryan's got it.
So you need to go. You need to go out there and wash them windows.
I need to wash them windows. Yeah, that's it. Dr. Windows.
Dr. Windows.
So Ryan's got like this whole breadth of fascinating things that he's done.
He's doing too much.
He's
got too much.
Like, I want to.
He's going on trips with Scott Pinkard
as his friend,
swim coach.
I want to be like
NES stuff.
He says, "Hey, yeah, the TikTok thing got a lot to manage." Be like, "Yeah, well, it could make money."
Yeah.
Like there's Bob Smiley makes $10 a day off of TikTok. Yeah, I think just the amount of stuff that he's done and the way that it has culminated to where, like, and the dude's a great storyteller. The the Montreal Screw Job, like, that was fun to hear about. It is one of those. It's one of those things that you're like, all right. So as somebody's talking about this,
definitely remember that.
Yeah, and they're telling you this story. You're like, all right, I don't know if I really want to get into a wrestling story. And then he starts to talk about all the characters, and then by the end of it, I'm like, okay, so then what happened next? And yeah, it was fascinating. The Nintendo games that he was able to collect, like Ryan,
he had to have the GDP of a small nation to get all those.
Yeah, well, okay. First off, yes, but second, like, this is how things change when you get married.
Estonia.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Able to throw that back in there.
Major callback.
So, like, this is how you know whether or not a person is married or married after kids, is if they're allowed to continue to grow their collections of things. Because
I want to know more about this.
Okay, because like I had a bunch of really cool stuff that my wife wants to know why it's in our house taking up space, because she doesn't think it's very cool.
This is before I was here.
Yeah, like this is and we talked about this with Isaac Whitty. Yeah. Like, oh, here's all these dishes. Well, sorry.
Man,
like,
he really buried the lead, or he nailed it at the very end with the picture of him and his cat. That was the funniest thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's kind of one of those things, though, is that like there is a accumulation of things that you like and enjoy, and then you get married and your wife sees that you like and enjoy something, and she's like, I don't need this competition. This is he seems to really like and enjoy this. This is going in the bin.
I gotta give Heather some credit here. She bugs me about things that I like.
Okay.
Because she gets to, I guess, experience them with me. But now, like I want to do other things.
If it's a thing, Kirsten will want to do it with me.
This is a video game. This is what I'm talking about right now.
No, we're not.
There's a game
we're not on that path.
She's making me play that I would rather read, and she's mad at me for reading.
Is it Ragnarok? She's making you play Ragnarok?
No, it's High on Life.
Video game. I've heard you talk about this before.
From Justin
Roiland. Yep.
It's a funny game. It's very for mature.
Right. You know, I did see an interesting thing from Justin Roiland. This is totally off topic, but so I've been reading Levi because he has to have stuff that's high contrast. So I've been reading him the hardback graphic novel of Ronin with the Ninja Turtles, and at the end, it's got some cover art that Justin Roiland did for it, and it's just like all of his other stuff. It's hideous and terrible to look at.
He's got one style.
Yeah, that's it. It's bad.
From Rick and Morty to
This
what's the other show?
High on Life, what you're talking about, into the
there's another show,
TMNT stuff. It's just,
another alien show. I
it's
just
just-
forget at the moment. It doesn't matter.
it's just meh.
Yeah, it's just,
Justin Roiland, Merry Christmas. So big thanks to Ryan for coming on. I do think we just kind of scratched the surface with some stuff, because I am
well, we'll have to see if he comes back on.
I am more interested in figuring out some of the Monday Night Wars things, but like we may need to couple that with some of the other stuff that Ryan shares expertise
This
in.
is what I need.
This is what
I
you
need.
need. Yeah,
I need
talk to me about your needs.
I need an Alana setup.
Okay.
Where not if things offend me or like I might not like it, but if it's going to be boring to me, I need like a face mask and some other headphones to put on.
So that you can just
maybe
whatever.
I can play Switch.
Yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
you let me know when you're done talking.
Yeah,
about
we'll be like,
WWE.
hey, we're ready, and
I'll go.
I'm back.
What's up?
Yep. So anyway, big thanks to Ryan for coming on the show. We didn't get into, and this is the one thing I really wanted us to tap into, is Ryan's theory of Ryan's
The Windsor's of
Winder's-
proportional relativity.
Winder's laws of inverse proportions, a 21st century guide to dating, which is what we originally had him on the show for. We didn't tap the surface
math
of that,
guy. He knows
but
how to do it.
we ought to, because it really is probably the best explanation for how to date people in the Tinder era.
Ryan,
So-
if you'll have me, we would love to have you back on.
Well, thank you guys for watching, for listening, and as always, y'all stay hard, keep jamming, and we'll see you.
I'm Dr. Ryan Winders, and this is why you should never listen to the Reverend and the Reprobate.